Good afternoon, and welcome to this week's episode of ThinkTank Thursday. I'm Candy Kelly. Excited to be your host for this week. Before we jump in, you guys know I have to give a big shout out to my 2023 Think Tank sponsors. We are so grateful for their support, which allows us to bring you these interviews with operators and other manufacturers and suppliers to give you a little bit of more knowledge about our industry today. Those sponsors include Simnox, Redemption Plus, Roller Software, Betson, and Delta Strike. So go check them out. We love them. So on Thursdays, Trainertainment likes to take a little bit of time away from the doing. And I know we're in busy season, so there's a ton of doing right now. But we've got to spend some time thinking about our business and being inspired by others. And so that's what we're here together to do. And we're going to do that with a great guest who is an operator. I love my operator interviews so much. So why don't you take a few minutes to tell everyone who you are, what you own, and where it's located, and kind of what it is.
Well, I am Trent Coggins. I live in Valdosta, Georgia, which is on the south border of Georgia with Florida. And I own Recoil Trampoline Park. We have obviously trampolines, but we've added laser tag, hyper deck, virtual reality, and we just opened up our brand new arcade. We've been open since September of 2019 and having a lot of fun.
You weren't even open 6 months when you.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, we 5 months, and COVID shut us down. Of course, we were in Georgia, so we were a little luckier, from the governmental perspective. Our shutdown wasn't quite as long as some of the other people out there that I watched go through terrible situations. But yeah, we were a little lucky. We opened back up in June, I believe, of 2020, and saw steady but slow growth over the next 6 months, and then things went crazy again. So
I know a little bit about your background, but could you tell everyone else a little bit about your background and what brought you to a trampoline park and this whole industry? Because it's not what you set out to do.
No, it's not what I set out to do. I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. I am trained as a lawyer. I currently am a professor. I have retired from the practice of law, and I teach business law at Valdosta State University. But when all of this happened, I was still practicing law. My wife and I, Anna, have 4 children, 4 boys, and they're extremely active, and it's difficult at times to keep them busy. So my wife is kind of famous for her day trips. And she woke me up on a Saturday morning and said, get up. We're going to go to a trampoline park. And I said, what the heck is a trampoline park? I'd never even heard of one, to be honest with you. Now, Valdosta is kind of, especially compared to some of the other ones out there, it's kind of a smaller community. We have 50,000 people in our town, 100,000 people in our county, and 150 in our MSA. So a smaller market than most people have. So we had to drive to go to see a trampoline park. There's absolutely nothing like this here. So we took the boys to a franchise, and I always say there's 2 types of parents: the helicopter parents and the non-helicopter parents. And I'm definitely on the non-helicopter parent side. I watched them jump a little bit and immediately could tell that they were having fun. But that business professor side started coming out, and I went and started watching the front door. I bought myself a Coke and set myself at a table so I could watch and see what was happening at the counter and out in the jump park at the same time. And, I said that famous last words that a lot of people say, my town needs something like this.
How far did you have to drive, if you don't mind me asking, Trent?
The closest trampoline park to us at the time was in Tallahassee, Florida. So that's about a 75-mile drive.
Wow. Okay.
So Jacksonville was the other location that we went to eventually, and saw some places there. Macon, Georgia, which is going to be 2 hours north of us, would be the other closest. So we were in a really good spot as far as nothing being around us. But that also turned out to be a detriment. I made the decision I'm going to try to press forward and see if I can generate some interest in Valdosta. So I started literally the next Monday, started calling franchises. And I remember I called 3 separate franchises that next week, had 3 very similar but disappointing conversations. Their stories were all Valdosta's too small. A trampoline park will never make it in a town your size. We'd love to have you on board, but you need to consider a larger location, larger city to put something like that in. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's a good business, but I'm not interested in it from another city's perspective. I'm interested in it from my city's benefit. And so, I'm a kind of a jack of all trades. Legal profession, business professor. I've done a little construction. I kind of got the idea, I think I can build one of these things on my own. But before I do, I need to make sure that it's going to work. So I went back and started it just like they would teach you at business school. I did a business plan. I put together expense sheets, everything that you could imagine. I tried to get off the internet. Well, there's not a whole lot of information out there about, starting a business like this. I mean, if you want to start a restaurant, you can find all sorts of information. But if you want to start a trampoline park, it's just not there. So I had to pretty much recreate it from what I saw, and started finding markets like Valdosta throughout the nation that trampoline parks actually were succeeding. And so I decided to do it here. Everybody thought I was crazy when I decided to start it. They said the same thing locally, that the franchises said it will never work in your town. Maybe I am crazy, but I pressed along, and here we are. So
what I love about listening to your story is that once you decided to do it, I think a lot of doors started opening for you. Like a place was going out of business, so you were able to get equipment and like things like that started happening.
We found the trampoline park. The bones of the trampoline park was actually a location that was closing. Of course, this was before COVID. They were closing basically because they had they're changing the event space into something else, and for lack of a better word, just the lease ran out.
Yeah.
And so was able to find that just out of the, just being lucky, right place at the right time. The hardest part, obviously, was finding a building that's the size that can handle a trampoline park. You need 18 to 20 foot ceilings. You need 25,000 square feet. You need ample parking. And most importantly, you need air conditioning. You could find bits and pieces of that, but you couldn't find it all. So I looked at every single grocery store that had gone out of business. Some of them had a lot of the requirements, but not everything. I rode by the building that we're currently in. Our building is actually owned by the city of Valdosta. It used to house a Big Lots, and I'll be honest, it was pretty derelict. I wouldn't let my wife go there. Now, it's in a great part of the city, but really ran down.
The building just hasn't been taken care of.
Not maintained. It just was, an eyesore. So I told the city, the Big Lots decided to move out of the location into a much better facility, which I don't blame them at the point. And so I had a conversation with some of the leaders in the city. Hey, what are you guys going to do with that building? And well, we're thinking about just turning it into paper storage. We just need a storage facility. And I said, what if I brought you a new business that may bring tourism to town and probably bring us, 25 or 30 jobs? 15 minutes later, we had a handshake agreement, and I moved into the old Big Lots. We totally gutted the building. The city said, hey, you can have it. We came to a good term on the lease, but they said, you're going to do all this repair yourself. And so,
yeah, I guess with the city, there's no TMI. There's no.
That's right. That's right. They're like, hey, listen, if you want the building painted on the outside, go for it, Trent. But
we'll cheer you on.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, we had to do a lot of work, and I think that's why it took us a lot longer to open than it normally would have. I think we had a 8 or 9 month build out. I'm trying to remember. It was pretty significant, but I didn't have a clean slate to start with. I had to start over, gut the building, bring it really up to code, do a lot of work to that building. Now it's kind of everybody knows where it is. It's in the exact center of town. And it really has revitalized it's a little area in our town called 5 Points, and it's really revitalized that part of town, and I take a lot of pride in that.
And it's a perfect building for you because it does have expansion opportunities.
Yes.
A lot. Like you have a great size parking lot. You could use some outdoor space, or you could build onto the building. Like you have opportunities there.
We have we have a 12,000 additional square feet that we could go to. Now, hindsight's 2020. If I were to build that trampoline park again today, I would flip it and do the mirror image. And the reason I built it the way I built it is because of where the bathrooms were located. I just kept the bathrooms there. If I, knowing what I know now, it's not that expensive, especially if you're doing a complete gutting to move the bathrooms. That would have allowed me to gain easier access to an additional 12,000 square feet. All that being said, hindsight's 2020. Once you build your first trampoline park, you're only then educated to build your second trampoline park. So I haven't got there yet, but we do have a lot of space inside, trying to figure out exactly what we're going to do. We just opened phase 4, which was the arcade. People immediately started asking, what's phase 5? And I honestly don't know. I think I sent you a couple of questions about what phase 5 might be, but we won't talk about that today. But anyway, so yeah, we do have the opportunity to go outdoors, and we're considering that as well. So lots of opportunity. Great facility, great location.
How'd you decide your name? Recoil, because you're turned down by franchises, so they already had names. So you had to come up with your own.
No, and I wanted something to be a little different, and I don't mean any offense to anybody out there by saying this, but I didn't want some mom and pop kind of name. I wanted something a little bit different. I wanted a logo that looked professional. And so we let a select group of people, family and friends, know that we were thinking about opening up a trampoline park. And the first thing we asked them was, we need a unique name. Help us come up with a name that's something other than, bounce or jump or, whatever that you typically see. And again, I mean no offense, but I wanted something different. Actually, my brother was the one that came up with Recoil Trampoline Park. And it was funny. We saw it. I remember my wife and I, we were driving somewhere, and he sent that text, and boy, it just clicked. And so
you knew it was right immediately.
I knew it, and that has been the theme of my business the whole way. I knew it was right. I knew it was right when I was in Tallahassee and I needed to do something like this. I knew it was right, even though the franchises were telling me no. I knew it was right when I saw the building going out of business and worked at. When I saw Recoil, I knew that was the name that needed to be for us. So it's a little different, something that you don't expect, but fits our business. So,
do you think you're going to have to make a slight modification to it soon?
It's
going to have to be Recoil, not Trampoline Park soon.
I know that. And yes, listen, I am surrounded here by business professors, marketing professors. We've had that conversation inside this building. I get it, but I don't know that I'm going to change the name. I do know that I'm more inclusive than just a trampoline park, but I've almost come to the conclusion that it's my job to educate you as a consumer that I have more than just trampolines, that I have laser tag, that I have virtual reality. And now, also our current advertising is that we are the largest arcade in South Georgia. So we're doing things like that to try to educate our customer rather than change our name. Is it going to happen? I'm not gonna bet yay or nay either way. Could we be
I find it
Recoil?
so humorous that you're a business professor surrounded by business professors
Yep.
and marketing professors, and you're like, I know this is what I'm supposed to do, but I don't want to.
We had our Christmas party for the School of Business at Recoil, and that was part of the topic of conversation. Wait a minute, Trent, you're not just a trampoline park anymore. Shouldn't you change your name to, accommodate that? Textbook, yes. Yes. That's exactly what we would teach our students.
It could just be a change of one word, entertainment park.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. For those of you who haven't picked up, so Trent was actively practicing law for a while, and he is a professor at Valdosta State, and he owns Recoil. So I gotta ask you, how do you manage? Oh, and you're very active in your community. Like there is no one in Valdosta that almost doesn't know who you are. So how do you manage all that? How do you manage your time, and how do you choose the people to keep on your team? Like how do you manage to get all this done?
I don't. I think I live my life by sticky notes. It takes a lot of organization. So there's a lot of pre-planning, especially when you throw a family of 4 in on that. That's very active with travel, soccer, and now we have one in college. So all of that kind of stuff. I just have to pick what is important and focus on those types of things. I'll tell you this, as far as Recoil is concerned, a lot of people in town think that I'm up there running it, and I'm really not. I have a very good team, and they're a very young team, and I give them the flexibility to learn and grow.
Is that why you think you're getting so much out of a young staff?
I do. I really do. So I give them a lot of autonomy really quickly. Now, I'm hiring young and bright college students that we work from, work them from when they were in high school all the way through college, turn them into assistant managers while they're in college. And then we've really had a progression that one manager turns it over to another manager. Now, that being said, I've had a high degree of turnover, especially in the management, the general manager position. And I guess my philosophy is, I know when I hire these guys and girls that this is not the job that they're going to work in for 20 years. Most of them have.
You have like a 6-year lifespan of most of them, right?
They have more, higher aspirations. And so my goal is to teach them as much as I can teach them early. I guess that's the professor hat. Get them prepared and then help them transition into a better job. I know that that's probably different than 90% of the people out there are doing it, but it's really worked for us. Our people buy into it. Our employees seem to be proud. We just went through a transition where one of our managers left for another extremely higher paying job, and I think that's one of the other things that they can do is they can really train themselves to outdo me as far as what they're capable of doing, and I take a lot of pride in that. But
interesting because so many people
we just had a transition.
Sorry, so many people have negative things to say about the up and coming generation, and you're saying the total opposite of that.
We're pretty picky about who we pick early on, but and yes, we've had our trouble with the bad apples and that kind of stuff. But as we groom them, everybody kind of buys into the system, and even the lower level employees once one of their own has been transitioned into the new position, they're extremely excited. And so there's some growing pains with that, but I let them. I'm there if they need me, but I let them make the decisions. And unless the decision is just 100% completely wrong, even if it's not the decision that I would make, I support them. I ride with it. And then if it's a learning opportunity that we could say, all right, well, you chose A. What if next time we chose B? And let's see what happens. And there's a lot to be said for that sink or swim mentality. But they do an extremely good job. I have an extremely young staff, but I am 100% confident in letting them run it by themselves. I'm sitting 4 blocks away from it.
It's not like you couldn't get there if something really happened.
If they need me, I'm there. But most of the time when I go to Recoil, I'm going as a parent, not as the owner. Now there's some exceptions to that. Usually when I'm there not as a parent, we're not open. So if we're open, I went there last night. My 11-year-old had his 5th grade basketball end of the season party there. I was there as a parent. I didn't do I'm watching. Yeah. I'm watching everything that's going on, but I'm having more fun being there with my children and talking to other parents and having fun than I am, hey, the bathroom needs to be cleaned up. That's their job.
So it sounds like you pick well in the beginning. You get rid of anyone who doesn't fit or doesn't do what they need to do pretty quickly, which means that they create a culture of they want each other to succeed, they work together well. And then you give them room to grow and without defining their path, because we all learn in different ways. And so you allow them to learn and you back them up with not really criticism, but with coaching moments versus criticism.
Yep. And that fits my personality. I would much rather say, okay, all right, let's try your way. And there's times that their way absolutely surprises me. Didn't think that would work. You know what? We're going to change our entire system because of it now. And they know that. But it really has worked for us. I'm proud of it.
It's given everybody a bit of ownership there.
Yep.
So what has been your biggest surprise? You said you were an accidental entrepreneur is what I read earlier, what you told me earlier. So what's been the biggest surprise you've experienced in the Recoil journey?
Obviously, the day-to-day dealing with the public. You would think that I would have been prepared for that as an attorney. Obviously, there's some challenges. Now the public obviously our biggest supporters. People love Recoil, but there are some challenging customers out there that we all know, and learning how to deal with them has been fun. But again, that's a growing opportunity. And the neat thing is, back to the managers, we have some of those managers that are great doing that and some that need help. And so the funny thing is, we can kind of put the two together when you've got a mad mama, for whatever reason that is, the one that's good at smoothing things over and making the mama end up smiling by the end of the conversation. The one that doesn't have that talent can learn that. But yeah, it's challenging. There's things that I never really thought of that I would, be doing in a business and dealing with, but I still enjoy it.
I listened to a podcast one day and somebody who works with folks was like, I just never realized that the public would be my motivation for wanting to continue and the reason why I wanted to quit every day.
That's exactly right. I tell people, I'm like, I can't honestly say, I don't remember doing it, but I can't honestly say that I ever remember leaving a diaper in someone's parking lot. But if I did, I'm ashamed of it. Some of the stuff that we deal with on a daily basis, just, preparing the facility is nuts,
So now that you're an entrepreneur, and you're looking back at this journey, you didn't want to be an entrepreneur, you had other intentions. What do you think that driving force was that like drove you to be like, no, I got to do this. Like I got to be an entrepreneur.
This is going to sound so cliche, and I don't really mean it to be, but when they told me no, I had 3 franchises that told me no, it will not work. And I'm like, I think it will, was really the driving force. Now, that was the driving force to open the doors.
Mm-hmm.
The driving force to keep it going is really a couple of things. Number one, the community is so invested in us that I want to give back. Now, I'm giving back things that make money. Don't get me wrong. That's why I'm in this business. But I'm giving them more of an opportunity here than I think that other communities would give them. We have, at last count, there's less than 20 hyperdecks in the United States. I told our mayor, who is one of my good friends, he wasn't the mayor at the time when I did the deal, by the way, with the city. But I told him, I said, he hates it when I make this statement, but hyperdeck doesn't belong in Valdosta, Georgia, but it's here.
Mm-hmm.
And so things like that. The other thing is the motivation to continue to grow and get better. I had a business professor in school once tell me, you're either growing or dying. He was also the professor that I thought of when I was at the trampoline park that very first day. And he had 2 famous sayings. One, you're either growing or you're dying. The other famous saying was, invest in things that your children are interested in. Now, I don't think he meant if your kids like a trampoline park, go open one. I think what he meant at the time was, when your kids come home and they want this newfangled thing called an iPhone for Christmas, it might be time to check out Apple stock.
Yes.
But yeah,
You took it a different direction. It's fine.
Absolutely. He's long since passed away. I wish I could share that story with him. But anyway, yeah, you're either growing or dying. And so I continue to try to say what's next. And growth can be addictive. It can also get, from a business perspective, it can also get you in trouble if you grow too quickly. But I've taken some lessons from what we've seen in the industry and in the economy. I lived through 2008, so I do things a little differently when it comes to financing and those strategies as far as growth. I probably, if I'd have done this prior to 2008, I would have 10 recoils by now.
Yeah.
No, not, slow, steady, safe growth.
One of the things you mentioned too for the community is when you presented to the city to give you the building, you're like, what if I could bring you 20 to 30 jobs? And
Yep.
I don't know if people, the audience caught this, but you said something about phase 4 earlier. And in a second, I'll have you go through your, like where you started with and what you like. But with each one of those phases, you've added more jobs, probably
Absolutely.
like more opportunity for your community to have some place to work inside Valdosta, which is a smaller community in Georgia. And we all know smaller communities have less starting job opportunities for young people who are young, want to start off working.
I think our current payroll is up to 54.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, and I don't think that's enough. I see that we'll be at 60 pretty soon.
So I'm sure the community loves that too.
We're no longer considered a small business by the we're no longer in the small business category with the Valdosta Chamber of Commerce.
You crossed over 50 employees.
Crossed over. We're a mid-sized business at this point.
Yes.
So.
All right, Trent. Didn't want to be an entrepreneur. It happened. So looking back, you've done a lot. You've learned a lot. What piece of practical advice would you give someone else?
2 things. One of the things that I'm proudest of when we decide to bite this bullet is we got in the car and drove. Now, it's easy to do when your kids play travel soccer and you're in a different city every weekend.
Mhm.
But prior to opening Recoil, we visited 14 trampoline parks throughout the Southeast. And now I have a built-in focus group for boys, and it's funny.
I can imagine what your car trips were like. What'd you like about this? What'd you think
That's
about that?
exactly right. That's exactly. We would literally leave, and as I'm driving, okay, what did you like? What did you not like? Why did you like it? Why did you not like it? And I had 4 different opinions. Now, at the time, that the oldest would have been 14, so kind of moving out of the trampoline park phase,
Yeah.
and the youngest would have been 5,
So
really
loving it.
starting to get into the trampoline park phase. So I had a built-in focus group. So get out, go look, figure out for yourself. And I will say those conversations really was what we based the attractions that we have, the look that we have, everything. There are things that we found that there's things that we like, there are things that we didn't like, and we went that way. The second thing I would tell someone is get as much industry education as you possibly can. Prior to opening, I did not realize all of the opportunities that are out there. Going to things like IAPA, Amusement Expo, 360, the stuff that Trainertainment does. I am still constantly going to those things, and maybe it's the professor side, maybe it's a little nerd side. I enjoy the education as much or more than I enjoy the trade show floor.
Mhm.
And so, and then there's experts out there that are more than willing to help you if you ask them. Both experts that seek compensation for their services, which is fine, and experts that have been in the business for 20 years that just want to take someone under their tutelage and say, hey, you're building a trampoline park 5 states away from me. Absolutely, I'll help you. And so that would be what I would tell somebody starting fresh.
Yeah, we definitely don't have to recreate anything.
No.
Like I know you just recently opened your redemption area with your arcade, your phase
Yep.
4, and I know you went to an event that one of Redemption Plus put on to make sure that you understood running a redemption and stocking that. How do you know the hot things to do and all of that?
So I will be honest with you, the arcade, the 2 things that scared the hell out of me was fixing the machines and then running the redemption. And going to so we went to Redemption Plus. I took me and my manager at the time out there, who, the phrase that I used to him is running an arcade is like a science, and he thought I was crazy. We go and obtain education and walk away from it with the feeling, yeah, now we feel like we can do this. And he agreed with me. It really is like a science. There's a lot of math. There's a lot of science behind an arcade. So even now, we're still getting that education and training before we went to that before we had ever agreed on. We were pretty sure we were going to do an arcade.
But there were no dates set at
we
the
hadn't
time.
bought a machine yet.
Nope.
We had not signed on the dotted line. But let's see if we can do this. And we came back and stepped on the gas and said, absolutely, we can do this. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity out there. And there's still a lot more opportunity out there. We're not in the food business.
Mhm.
And Dave Wallace laughs at me all the time. And I tell him, I said, I know nothing about the food industry. And he's like, you didn't know anything about the trampoline park industry either, but you learned. So maybe
Taylor and I were just talking about how you're still holding strong on no food. She was like, yeah, I got us a food truck out here on Saturdays.
That's exactly right. And you know what? It's worked. So I'm still a holdout. I'm not going to ever say no by any stretch of the imagination, but
for now, you're okay to not.
For now, I am comfortable
All right, I feel like I had a signature question for Think Tank Thursday, but I feel like it's almost you've answered it so many times. It's like, what do you do to consist on a consistent basis to grow yourself? And you've talked nothing but about learning and growing. But is there
Yeah.
anything like special that you do that maybe isn't professional related, but something that you do to grow yourself?
Well, I kind of go by the philosophy you can't work on your business when you're working in your business. And I really remind myself of that a lot, is that I've got to be the guy that lets the day to day happen, right? Don't be afraid to delegate. Don't be afraid to let them fail. But remember that, my ultimate job is to keep it clean, safe, and fun. And fun means growth. So that's what I focus on. And that's the part. I mean, if you really think about it, that's the
Yeah.
part of our business that's the most fun. I mean, yeah, we get to see them having fun, but personal growth is growing that business, making it better than it was last year. And so I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. And that's what keeps me working, when I'm texting you at 9 o'clock at night and, hey, tell me the names of the 3 businesses that do this well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's a good. I rely a lot on people like you, Candy. Mentioned Dave Wallace. There's many more that I text at all hours of the night to try to pick your brain and say, okay, you mentioned earlier, there's no need to reinvent the wheel.
They're experts. We all have
Tell,
our lanes.
tell me who runs the wheel well, and I want to go see them run that wheel. We went to 14 before we opened. We're still going to trampoline parks. We're still going to other facilities. We tried to do one last weekend while we were in Jacksonville, something that we had never seen before. It just didn't work out on this particular soccer trip. But when we go out of town, we're looking for somewhere to learn something from. And there's never been a place that I've walked in and I haven't learned anything. I mean, now maybe I can learn it in 5 minutes now versus 2 hours in the past, but I can still learn something about how they do things differently than we do.
Mhm.
And I bring it home.
Were you ever an operator, or you always
No,
owner? Yeah.
always
Okay.
owner. Yeah, I never. Now, the first week or two, I was helping run the point of sale. Now they won't let me touch it, which is probably a good thing.
Mhm. So you've always known your role was owner and to be forward focused and future focused for what the
Yeah.
future of Recoil was. And then
As
you
soon as
chose people to do the day-to-day maintenance of keeping it running.
as soon as we knew that yeah, Trent wasn't crazy, that this is going to work in our town, I immediately started transitioning from well, think about it this way. All right, so we opened in September of 19
Mhm.
to great turnouts. I mean, just absolutely nuts. And I immediately started thinking, okay, what's next? For no other reason at that point than, hey, wait a minute, I've shown everybody in my town that they can do this. Who's going to open one across the street from me? So I'm like, not only do we need growth to create more revenue, we need growth to protect our business. So again, pre-COVID, February of 2019, I went to the first amusement, well, it wasn't their first, but my
Yeah.
first amusement 360. And that's where we decided that phase 2 was going to be laser tag. And I was ready to go. I think it was February the 19th is when that seminar started. Less than 1 month later, we were shut down.
Yes.
Uh, Now, all we did was put those plans on the shelf. We brought them back out October of 2020 and were opened the next summer, I think September of 2021.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It's when we opened laser tag. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Trent, thank you so much for being so generous with your time today. If people want to connect with you, ask you questions, and you want to share your inspiration down as people have done with you, or if they want to learn more about Recoil, where would you send them?
Well, they can send me an email, Trent at recoiltrampolinepark.com. And that's probably the best place to find me. And I'm more than happy to talk to someone that's interested in the business. I will be the first to tell you, I'm still 3.5 years into this. I'm still learning. There's a lot of things that I don't know that I don't know. But I am trying to figure it out, and I'll be more than happy to help somebody else take the journey, because it's been life-changing for me. It gave me the flexibility to say I always had the dream to be a professor, but had to, had to be a lawyer, right? It gave me
be a lawyer.
Right, had to be a lawyer, right? It gave me the ability to say, okay, now let's go. We've got two dreams professionally happening. One is operating a pretty successful business, but on the other hand was, hey, let's really push ourselves towards going towards academia. So Recoil has done a lot for me personally. And if there's anything that I can give back to someone to help them make that growth, I'm more than happy to do it, because I believe in paying it forward. So.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you. Thank you to everyone out there for spending time with us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you again to Trent for coming on and sharing so graciously with his story, and how just an idea while he was out with his kids has turned into such a success in Valdosta, Georgia. Again, if you want to check that out, that is recoiltrampolinepark.com, and in Valdosta, Georgia. Thank you to everyone for choosing to spend this time with us. I hope you found some inspiration in his story today. Again, I want to thank my 2023 Think Tank sponsors. We love them and all that they allow us to do. And if you want to be a guest or have an idea for Think Tank, please do not hesitate to email me. You can email me, Candy, at trainertainment.net. As you see, I'm trying to focus this year on some more operators and sales managers and just people who are doing this work every day so that they can share their ideas and inspirations to others. So join us again next Thursday, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye, everyone.